You look like me.
This channel is for mature audiences only. If you're underage on this channel, your parents' mom should have swallowed them or spit them out.
Hello, this is Tico Tren. I made this video because people always ask me about because I never really talk about I do talk about my mother, but I very rarely talk about my father. And I was going to just talk about both of them and who they are and pretty much how they were as personality wise. I pretty much talked about my mother's personality, but I'll just go over it just a little, just in case a lot of y'all missed her personality. My mother is Jamaican. Her name is Catherine. She's from Jamaica. She's from St. Elizabeth Parish in Jamaica, Black River, town called Black River, just outside Black Rivers in the cockpits of Jamaica is a town called Akungpung, where she actually grew up at. She's very strong-willed, very fierce, very independent, very, a lot of things basically. She's very spoiled, and it showed in her personality. She's one of them people that, it was her way or the highway type things, or if it wasn't made the way she liked it, it wasn't going to get eaten basically, or she wasn't going to do it at all. That was typically her general personality when it comes to things like that. So yeah, she had her flaws. She had her strengths. She had her weaknesses. She had her flaws, and she had a lot of stuff that she needed to work on too as well, along with other family problems. I know I very rarely speak about my dad because I know people always ask me about my father more than they ask me about my mother because I very rarely speak about him. Yes, I do know my father. He was in my life. The reason why I wasn't raised by him because my grandmother didn't want me to pick up any of his traits or his behaviors. For all intents and purposes, would be the best way I can describe it to you. Basically, what it was is my father was a player. Basically, he used to play the field like it was going out of style. Let's just put it this way: he has 5 children, and they're all to to 4 different women. Basically, my oldest sister and my youngest sister had the same mom. My brother has a different mom. My sister has a different mom. I mean, my sister Fran. So let me rephrase that. My sister Teresa has the same. My sister Teresa and my sister Lynetta has the same mother. My sister Fran has a different mother. My brother Trey has a different mother, and I have a different mother. He basically was. We used to call him a Rolling Stone, or I call him a globetrotter because he basically was smashing and dashing women in different countries. People always talk about smashing and dashing people in their own zip code. He was literally smashing and dashing women in different countries, basically. Which brings me to his personality. He's a very down to earth, hardworking man. He finally settled down and married my older sister and younger sister's mother, basically, not too long ago, about last year. He's still alive. He's still kicking. We still talk. We still hang out. We still do a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, my mother passed away in 2019 from an ailment, basically. It sucks, but I mean, it really doesn't bother me because she was always a stubborn woman. So typically, I never really had any problems with her. She was always a stubborn woman. So I'm not shocked about the way she went for all intents and purposes. I made a video about that, saying that I'm not shocked in the least bit because she was a stubborn woman for all intents and purposes. But back to my father. He's still around. He's still kicking. Married. Hasn't had any more children yet, which is actually pretty interesting. And he's pretty much been he's pretty much been dating the same woman for the last faithfully. Been dating the same woman for the last what 9, 10 years now. Finally got married to her 2 years ago. A year and a half, 2 years ago, basically. But other than that, he's a very good guy. He's a down to earth guy. He's very hardworking. He's very focused. He's very driven. He always gets the job done, and he's a very focused guy. His name is Lonaldo, basically. Um, he's a good dad. He's good to ask questions too and stuff like that. But unfortunately, like I said, I was raised by my grandparents, his mom and dad, basically because they didn't want me picking up none of his characteristics or traits or behaviors or mannerisms, basically. So I was typically raised by my grandparents for that reason. Yeah. Outside of that, my grandmother's name is Maritza, and my grandfather's name is Cardinal. But yeah, those are my grandparents. My dad was actually born and raised in Nicoya, Costa Rica, um, which is actually pretty nice. It's a lovely town in Costa Rica. Um, Small town, lovely town though. My grandmother was born in Bribri, Costa Rica, and my grandfather was born in Colombia. Is typically how it works. So this is typically when you see my flags, you're basically understanding where all the flags and stuff come from. So my dad's side was born in Colombia. His mother is actually from India. She is a Santal woman, very lovely woman, very, very fierce, very independent, very she's a forward thinker. She's always thinking on her toes, things along the lines of that. Um, um, and things along the lines of that. So it's one of those things where I learned a lot from my great grandmother growing up, as far as like cooking and languages and stuff like that, how to be independent, um, stuff like that. What's up, Shinobi One? But I learned a lot from her before she passed away. She's a very lovely woman. She's a very caring woman. She was always she grew up in the Vedic traditions basically, and that's typically where I learned all my Vedic traditions from is her. Um, that is the mother of my grandfather. Um, his father was born in Colombia. Apparently, the two met basically while he was while his father was actually basically traveling to India to visit the seedy people. And he happened to run into my grandmother and my great grandmother, and my great grandmother basically said it was love at first sight. And my grandfather didn't even notice her, but when he did, it apparently hit up. They apparently hit it off, and they basically had my granddad and a few other children basically on top of that. Um, Things along the lines of that. My mom's mom is a Jamaican woman. Her dad is also a Jamaican man. Uh, so it's pretty interesting. My family. Um, like I was saying, yeah, my grandmother grew up in Bribri, Costa Rica, um, with family. Unfortunately, when she started dating and married my granddad, her family basically shunned her, so and never talked to her again. Um, yeah, I've read it. I read it a couple times. I've read it several times. I still read it till this day. Shinobi One. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where things like this happen in families, and it's sad when it happens. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where my grandmother's my grandmother's being kicked out of her family ended up making her a much stronger woman. And it made because my granddad was always on top of his business. He's always been a shrewd businessman. So typically, it ended up being where to the point where my grandmother's family ended up losing everything, and my grandmother ended up gaining everything for all intents and purposes. And now they talk to my grandmother now because my grandmother got money now, and it's the funniest thing in the world to watch a family not want to talk to their family. Now all of a sudden, now that they're more financially set than the rest of the family, now all of a sudden they want to come back and talk to you, which is actually something I've always found funny when it comes to female nature. Another thing is my great grandmother, who was a Santali woman. Um, she's a Santal woman. She taught me Santali. She taught me the Vedas. She taught me a lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, when she married my great grandfather, apparently her family basically didn't want to talk to her either. So they basically, stopped talking to her and shunned her from the family. And again, when it comes down to it, I've always found it funny how they didn't talk to the family up until the family started gaining prestige and money, basically, when it comes down to it. And the sad part about that is at the end of the day, I've always found it interesting how people want to downplay you, but then when your family starts gaining money and getting money, they all of a sudden they want to be your friend and they want to act like they just didn't exile you for like many years and not talk to you for many years. They want to pick up where they left off at the end of the day, which is something I've always found interesting and funny. Um, yeah, but those are pretty much my parents. My mom's name is Catherine. She passed away in 2019. I mean, 2019, basically. My dad's still alive. My grandfather passed away. Dad's sad. My grandmother's still alive, and my other grandmother, mom's sad, is on her way out the door because she's passed. She's basically on death watch. Basically, is what we refer to it. So she's starting to, transition to the end of her life. Pretty soon here. Um, that's about it. Yeah. Other than that, I'm about to head on over to Friday Night Blaze so I can join the cast of characters because I'm pretty sure there's some characters over there. But I thought I'd drop this story because I was asked about it multiple times and I just never really got around to actually making a video about it. So I kind of figure I do a real quick live stream before I hop in the Friday Night Blaze. Y'all be good to yourselves. Treat yourselves like milk, do not spoil yourselves. Adios. True. Very true.